Charles Bordeleau was Ottawa's chief of police from 2012 to 2019. He joins us right now to share his thoughts on the protests and the Commission's work so far. Chief Bordeleau, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
Listen, I wanted to begin with your thoughts on the testimony that we heard today. As you know, the city manager, Steve Kanellakos, was speaking. The city, it seems, when declaring that state of emergency, from what we heard today, it seems that really what Ottawa was looking for was more provincial action, which Ontario seemed hesitant to do. What's your reaction to that? Should Ontario have done more to the declaration of emergency?
Well, I think to start off with is these types of commissions are set up to really lift the veil, connect the dots, and get the full story. So we're getting the story in piecemeal, so we don't have access to all the information. But clearly, there's a message that's being sent by the city that when you have governments at all three levels aligned, things could go a lot smoother. And what this is about is about the city and the police service getting access to tools and resources to get the job done. So they were looking everywhere and anywhere in order to give them access to more tools to do enforcement. So if you look at the province, they have access to CVORs, which is the trucking regulations, MTO around closure of roads, the highways. So I think those are the things that the city and the police service were looking to the province to see how can you help us resolve this situation in a peaceful manner without having to send a bunch of police officers in and have a riot on our hands.
And what's interesting about that is that here we have this commission. It's looking not so much into Ontario's actions in particular, but on the Emergencies Act declaration, whether or not it was necessary. But given what we heard today from the city manager, do you think the act would have been invoked if Ontario had, for example, been more aggressive with revoking insurance or commercial licenses, or, as you say, closing down highways and roads under their control?
Well, we won't know that because we don't know what kind of effect it would have had on the truckers had their insurance or their CVRs been suspended. So we'll never know the outcome of that, but it was could have been used potentially as a threat or as a tool, as a carrot to say, if you don't leave, your CVR is going to be suspended and your insurance is going to be adversely impacted. So the province wasn't able to do that, but what the federal act was able to do, it did a number of things. It turned off the financial tap immediately to cease any more finances going to the convoy protesters. It gave police services in the city access to immediate resources. You heard the city manager talk about their inability to get access to tow trucks and the police services inability to get tow trucks. So the federal act gave them those tools. It also gave the authority for police to prevent anybody who wanted to come to this illegal demonstration or occupation to come to the city. That is something that the police service didn't have the legal authority to do prior to the Emergencies Act being invoked. And it also acted potentially as a deterrent for others to come to Ottawa to gather more steam around the long weekend. So those are things that the Act gave police and municipalities more tools to do to help stop this. Now, whether or not it was right to be able to do that, to invoke the Act, that's what the inquiry will be able to determine, hopefully.
What they are looking into right now. But, you know, the province did seem to believe at the time, and again, from what we've heard from the city manager, they seem to believe that Ottawa police have the resources needed to actually deal with what was happening on the ground. What do you make of that assessment and that kind of response even now?
Well, the province's statement, from what we are hearing so far, is that this is the policing solution, and that police services should have been able to resolve this alone amongst themselves, dealing with getting resources from other police services. What we heard from Chief Slowly, that clearly resources were an issue, and for some reason or another, the resources were not coming. So I'm hoping to hear the story behind why those resources weren't coming. What were the dynamics between Chief Slowly and other police leaders? Why was there a delay in getting access to resources come to Ottawa to support the police service in Ottawa? So I think there's a story behind that hopefully will be told in order for the public to understand better what were those dynamics that were going on around getting access on a more timely manner police officers to come to Ottawa.
So that is something that we'll be watching for. But, again, and you hinted it a bit in your second answer there, but this commission really is looking at the Emergencies Act, the invocation, whether or not it was necessary. Based on your experience as a former chief of police, do you think it was necessary at the time?
I believe that it gave them some valuable tools in order to get the job done. Shutting off the tap to the convoy protesters and financing the operations was a key element that stopped that money from flowing. Giving police officers access to tow trucks and getting providers to be forced to come into Ottawa and bring their tow trucks, that was another element. And also giving that authority to police officers to stop vehicles. I think had those authorities not been granted to police, I believe that the convoy would have gone on even longer, and it would have been more difficult for police services to stop it. So it wasn't the only solution, but it was part of the solution that helped bring matters to a conclusion.
You hinted to the kind of answers that we're still looking for out of this inquiry. And I'm wondering, because we are expecting to hear from the Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, and the former police chief as well in the coming days. What do you want to know from them? What questions would you ask them?
Well, I think the mayor will be more of his discussions with the province and the federal government and the behind the scenes issues. I think we heard a lot of what was going on behind the scenes from Mr. Kanalakis, the city manager. So I don't know what else we'll hear from the mayor's office. I think what I'd like to hear from Chief Stoley and other police services is, they thought that these protesters are only going to stay for the weekend. Obviously, they were wrong. Why were they wrong? What intelligence systems did they have in place to gather information? And were they the right systems? Did his board play a role in interfering in operations of the chief with respect to what they were doing and what they were saying? And were there dynamics with other police leaders that prevented resources from coming to Ottawa sooner to help them? And I think that those are the types of things that I'm looking forward to hearing from Chief Stoley and other police leaders that will come to testify.